Totally. So, I mean, fresh off, MACC, Mid Atlantic CrossFit Challenge, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Third place finish there. So congrats, another trip to the games, ninth trip now, right?
Yeah. 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 Ninth consecutive trip.
I mean, that's an achievement in itself, obviously, but
Like that.
did you have like a plan going in to like, and were you able to execute your plan if you did have one going in to try and make sure you at least made the games?
Yeah. So obviously, qualifying for the games it's the crux of your season. Like people don't. It's weird because like you have to think of it twofold. Like I'm competing to be the fittest on earth, right? Like that's what I train and compete to do, to be crowned fittest on earth, to win the CrossFit Games. But you have to qualify for the CrossFit Games in order to do that.
Right.
And so it's such a pivotal moment, pivotal weekend of your year. It's almost arguably one of, if not as big, like it's one of the biggest weekends of your year as far as the season comes, because if you don't qualify, and there's a multitude of reasons why somebody might not qualify. Like there's so many things that are either out of your control, that could just be a hindrance and you make a massive mistake. Like there's so many things that could transpire in that weekend to keep you from, contending at the CrossFit Games. And, I'm really thankful that CrossFit has brought about the last chance qualifier. That is it's one of the coolest changes that they have made in the last 2 years, to the CrossFit season, because there are so many things that can keep people out of contending at the CrossFit Games, or, compete at the CrossFit Games. And so if that does happen, having people, giving people the opportunity to like maybe like I should be there, I'm fit enough to be there, like giving those people another chance, because ultimately, like I want to be competing against the fittest individuals possible, right? So
Right.
but yeah, no, it's a big weekend, and I feel like I accomplished what I set out to accomplish, that is qualify for the CrossFit Games. Now on top of that, I wanted to win the MAC. That was, that was my heart's desire going there, but it wasn't necessarily like the main focus. It's like, hey, go take care of business, and business is you need to qualify for the CrossFit Games. When you think of a training season and you think of a competitive season, there's a fine balance between being extremely fit and peaking at the wrong time,
right,
or peaking at the right time. And it's kind of a fine line. Like you can really screw that up pretty easily, especially with how easy it is to get excited about training, especially when a competition comes around, an in-person competition comes around, especially like that means something these days. And so when you have an in-person competition coming up, like there's a lot of like eagerness to train harder. I'm going to be on the floor, and then all of a sudden you find yourself doing too much volume or too much intensity, and you don't realize that you're starting to peak too soon. A small peak is okay, but if you peak too soon in your season, there's always a crash afterwards. If that happens at the wrong time, it's hard to come back and peak again for the CrossFit Games, right? So there's kind of a balance there. Like, hey, we need to go in prepared, but let's not be so prepared that we've peaked and that hinders us from being able to prepare really well for the CrossFit Games. So, fine balance there, but I feel like ultimately we came out with the objective, and that was to qualify.
Yeah, and you have a couple months here until the games. I think 2 months from today when we're talking.
That's crazy.
What's the most important thing for you from now until the games? That you focus on? Is it nutrition? Is it workouts? Is it recovery?
Yeah, so I mean, I think you hit them all, right? I think that is, and it's interesting because throughout the flow of a season, you can dial each one of those in at different times. But when And like if you talk about like I think the 4 or 5 main pillars of sleep, nutrition, recovery, mindset, and minimizing stress, um, and training. So like if you look at those 5 pillars of performance, each one of those kind of get dialed in at different times. When it's really early on in the season, maybe nutrition isn't completely dialed in because you need to add a little bit of like room for your mind to just, have some space, have some balance,
Right.
where everything's not constantly dialed in. So maybe early in the year, maybe it's nutrition or recovery that's not dialed in. But when we get into games training in these next 2 months, it's where all 5 of those meet each other and you start dialing all of them in. This week, this week right now when we're talking, this is the week post semifinals, post the MAC for me. So I picked 2 or 3 of those to relax on. Mine's been recovery and nutrition.
Okay.
Like I've just kind of been a little bit relaxed on those. Oh, I guess, and training, because I'm not really training. I'm not really training this week. So
Right.
like I've kind of relaxed on those to some degree, not to a degree that like I'm gonna get past this week and just like be in a hole. It's like, oh, like I gotta climb out of this one. That's
I
not
was
to
gonna
not
say, what's relaxed nutrition look like for you? Is that like
yeah, relaxed nutrition. So I usually weigh and measure all of my food.
okay?
And I meet certain macros and whatnot. And also I'm very much about clean eating, so like adopting the principles that maybe that you hear around thrown around CrossFit a lot, whether that be eating somewhat of a paleolithic diet, or a zone diet, or meats and veggies, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, no sugar, like
Right.
those concepts, like eat pretty similar into that, but also for performance. So like I will eat breads and simple sugars where needed, for nutrient timing around training.
Sure.
Um, so ultimately just trying to eat clean most of the time. This week it's looked like, hey, let's eat clean most of the day. And if we feel like having a treat, we being my wife and I, if we feel like having a treat, like let's go do it. Just don't do it out of don't binge eat. Don't do
Right.
it out of, and that's also more so just like kind of the lifestyle that we've fallen into, where we're at in life. It's like I would rather be clean eating clean 95% of the time and have a treat when I want to have a treat. Because then the treat it actually kind of means more. I enjoy it more when it's
Yeah.
it's a little bit more spaced out, or you don't eat yourself sick. So that's kind of what nutrition has been like this week. I think we got some ice cream 2 days ago. I got a little bag of peanut M&Ms. It's kind of
Oh,
like
those are my
that's like
favorite.
that's my favorite. This is my favorite candy. And so it's like I'll snag a handful of peanut M&Ms or whatever, and eat those with just kind of relaxing
Yeah, I
and
mean, if you
feeling.
don't have a second,
Yeah.
the one thing I was kind of curious about, just in your personal perspective, is there anything maybe that people who aren't CrossFit athletes, elite CrossFit athletes with training, that they maybe take for granted that you like kind of wish you could do, like take for example, if there's a new movie coming out that everybody's talking about, or like a TV show, Stranger Things just came out, like,
Yeah.
so we are able, because I'm not training all the time and everything, to kind of sit and watch stuff like that. Is that something
Yeah.
that CrossFit takes you away from?
Yeah, a little bit. So actually the thing that I think would has been the hardest for me over the years is time with loved ones and friends. I think the number of times I felt, and maybe I didn't need to, but at the time I felt like I needed to say no to a social gathering, time with friends,
Mm-hmm.
time with family members, going on a trip, or just going over to the West Side and traveling over to see my family. It's a 6 hour drive or an hour flight plus a 2 hour drive. So it's like, it's a travel day. Like
Right.
it's kind of significant travel commitment, especially with a 1.5-year-old. But the number of times that they've asked, like, hey, when are you going to come over? And that feeling of like, I don't know when I can. Like,
Right.
Like I don't have a training environment over there. There's no gyms to train at. It's going to be 4 days off of training, which is pretty substantial. It's what that kind of commitment to the sport has asked. That can get pretty weighty, that can get pretty hard,
Yeah, I
like
can
sure, like
imagine.
sure we're training, like you kind of hit the nail on the head, like yeah, we're training all the time, and then past training, like I'm not gonna say unfortunately, but on top of training, where a lot of athletes are making a living now is also kind of being a social media presence or an influencer or something like that.
Right.
And I don't think that people have a strong grasp on how much time that actually takes. That is a lot of time commitment to be on social media, to produce content that people are willing to consume and want to consume. So there's so much going on there. So you get done with your training, and then you start to do all those other things. You're answering emails, answering text messages, connecting with people, and all of a sudden your day's done.
Right.
Not to mention, in between all of those, you're dialing in nutrition. You don't get to just go to so and so and grab a quick bite, or get takeout and eat fast food, and like you have to have prepare your meals, and there's a lot that you have to dial in. But I love it. Like I thrive in it. You
Right.
know what I mean? So like that doesn't feel like a burden to me. I just think it might be lost on some people oftentimes.
Totally.
Um, but the hardest thing for me has been feeling like I can't be with all of the loved ones that I want to be with, when I want to be there, or they could use time. And that's kind of hit heavy this last year. One of my absolute best friend in life was diagnosed with brain cancer. My son was born prematurely, 3 months premature last year, and that was just kind of the perspective shift for me of like, man, like this time goes fast and this life is quick, and
Right.
like what is the biggest priorities, and how it was a kind of a conviction of like, how can I do a better job of that,
Sure.
of really giving more of myself to the things that matter most in life.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry to hear.